Well, here we are on a Wednesday night. It's just the two of us tonight. It's the Joe and Joe Weather Show. No guests, no Brady Bunch boxes. Just Joe and Joe. So how are you today?
I'm doing just fine. It was a kind of a quiet day out there and a little chilly, Joe. The high in my house was only 45 degrees and had and I do mind, I mean very, very light precipitation. Maybe you could call it L minus, 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 minus. Other than that,
L being drizzle.
L being
Yeah.
drizzle, and it wasn't even drizzle. It was more like maybe mist minus, minus, minus. I mean, I walked to the mailbox and back, and I said, I detect, I detect
You
some
detected.
teeny tiny little
You
bit of
detected.
stuff,
I,
maybe micron-sized raindrops.
yeah, I didn't even have that out here. In fact, I went for a walk this morning, and I walked just under 8 miles.
Good Lord.
Yeah, not too shabby for a 61-year-old
Yeah.
whose hair is still his natural color.
Well, not for long.
Right. By the way, I've I challenged everybody on my Facebook page since beauty parlors have been closed for about a week now to put up a picture to see what your hair actually looks like. So
Well, no, I just had this sneaking feeling that this was going to happen, that they were going to close all the hair cutting salons or whatever. So I had mine cut literally, I think the day before the edict
yeah,
from the governor.
yeah. So
But
I did too. I met with my haircut guy. When did I do it? Was it not this Saturday? The Saturday before last, I think. Yeah, and it was already out of control. So I felt so much better once he cut it.
yep, yeah,
It's like it's magical. Uh,
thinking that we don't know when this is going to happen, when we were able to get a haircut again.
right.
What I should
Well,
have said was I should have said, "Give me a crew cut," which I have not had since I was like 13
yeah.
years old.
Well, I have a buzzer, so if they don't open up, I'm just gonna get one. I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm just
Hmm,
gonna buzz it down. I mean, it's not like if it comes out uneven, who cares? It's not.
right.
I'll just shave it all the way down to the bottom. But this will be protected. You know,
Yes.
this I
Yes.
can do because this is with without with a mirror. But
Right.
this is a little hard. So uh, tonight's show we're gonna end it at 7:30. So just letting everybody know that. And
As a compensation from yesterday's record-breaking
right,
1 hour
hour
40
and
minute marathon.
35 minutes exactly. Oh God, it was fun though. It was nice to have everybody together. So
Yes.
we'll do it again, I'm sure, from time to time. Mark G said I'll just shave it. He's also going to just shave his head. It's the easiest thing to do. Just get the buzzer and just go. So I was looking at the weather going forward, Joe, and we're kind of in this. There's no new teleconnections today, but I was looking at the overall upper air pattern. I got a sense that it wasn't really too much different from yesterday, which means we're going into this sort of blocking pattern, and that's going to mean one of the things that I don't like about the spring when you get into these blocking patterns is that the dry weather that you get is like for a day. You wind up getting weather systems every 24 or 36 hours, which means if you get a day where there's some sunshine, and we should have at least some tomorrow, I would think, even though I think there'll probably be clouds around. But if you get a day where the weather is dry and there's no rain, take advantage of it because you're going to. And we're also at some point, we're probably going to wind up setting up at some point where we're going to go into an onshore flow and just be cloudy for days and days and days. And I hate the spring because that is a signature of spring weather around here, and I can't stand it.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people are upset just being stuck at home with no place to go and social distancing and the like. But it's even worse when you could at least step outside and enjoy some sunshine and mild temperatures, but to have a protracted spell of one day after another day after another day of cloudy and rainy and raw and chilly and damp condition, that'll just drive you
Yeah,
crazy.
and that's why I forced myself today, even though it was cloudy, but it didn't rain. I got a jacket on. I got a hat on. I took my headsets and my phone, and I listened to CNBC. Uh, on the walk, and before I knew it, I had walked almost over 2 hours and 8 miles. So I was a happy camper. Watches and warnings map tonight, Joe. I mean, this is another thing. Usually in March you have at least somewhere there's and at some point during the month there's a major storm. We haven't really seen that this month. There hasn't been a whole lot of activity regarding intense lows on either coast. I mean, we've had a few systems, yes, but in terms of a major league late winter, early spring type storm that impacts a large geographic area, we really haven't seen that. And tonight, across from one coast to another, yeah, there are some pockets where we have a few winter weather advisories and a few odd winter storm warnings up in the west, in the western part of the U.S. The only other thing that's happening today are red flag warnings from northeastern New Mexico into southwestern parts of Nebraska, and that's it. The rest of the country is pretty quiet.
It is, and I think the cloud cover that we have tonight will probably go bye bye beginning after midnight. Tomorrow, I think, Joe, we're going to have mainly sunny skies. I don't think we're going to have much to worry about in terms of any significant cloud cover, and temperatures will climb through the 50s. Here in the lower Hudson Valley, the Sound Shore will probably be somewhere in the 51 or 52 range, but inland, I could see temperatures well into the 50s to near 60 tomorrow.
If there's enough sun, yeah. I was kind of looking at the overall uh, the surface setup tomorrow. There seems like there's a weak little front that drops down from upstate New York that sort of sets up the case for um, the system that comes through late Thursday night, early Friday. So I thought maybe there might be a few clouds that come in. I mean, it's not enough to cause any big issues. And I do see, at least on the satellite, I got the loop up now. You know, the back edge of the cloud cover is not too far to the west of us, so it'll be out of here before too long. And we should, at the very least, partially clear out as this system here that's offshore, low developed off the North Carolina coast, starts to run away to the northeast passing south of Nova Scotia. Looks like some weather getting in there to a certain extent. But the precip's just about over with. This is the radar, what it looked like a couple of hours ago. But as we give it a refresh, all the precip is now well south and east of Long Island and Cape Cod. You're starting to see a little bit of action coming into through Minnesota and Wisconsin. That is moving eastward. And then out in the west, there's a lot of scattered activity all around the West, in California on northward, very showery looking. A little unusual on the radar today, Joe. Just looking out west, it just looks very showery over a large area. Usually, don't see the radar looking like this in the western part of the U.S.
And we talked about yesterday about the precipitation probability for today, and you were talking about whether or not we'd even see any precipitation. My thought was that we were probably just right, literally on the northern fringe or northern edge of today's precip. That goes out. We dry out for later tonight, tomorrow. Again, bright and sunny, and then Friday. I think we'll probably see some precipitation breakout after sometime between midnight and dawn tomorrow night, and we'll probably linger through the first half of the day on Friday. But then we may even break into some sunshine.
If we break out into some sun on Friday, we could take temperatures up behind this. It's not as if there's a shot of cold air after that low goes by. So I think we could see temperatures well in the 50s or maybe even above 60 on Friday. And then here comes the weather system for the weekend, which is going to have impact, I think, on both days to an extent. But I kind of came to the conclusion that while Sunday probably won't be anything to write home about, it's definitely good. It should be the better of the two weekend days.
Well, Saturday now on Saturday, do you think we'll have precipitation before nightfall on Saturday, or do you think it's going to hold off until after it gets dark?
I don't know, Joe. There's a warm front that sets up, so that's always tricky. The GFS, if you want to believe it, has rain all over the place by Saturday afternoon, by 1 or 2 o'clock, and then it lifts it up to the north because this next low runs up to the Great Lakes. And by the way, I should point out too that when we have this, when you have a blocking pattern, it doesn't necessarily mean that every low winds up tracking to the south. And you're still going to have, you still can see lows that wind up going toward the Great Lakes. But you'll notice here on this one, it gets up into the northern lakes and then just starts redeveloping eastward. So for whatever reason, the blockiness in the atmosphere is probably just not strong enough at this point to force this thing to be to the south. But nonetheless, it looks like this warm front wants to go by. This kind of looks like the weather system we just had. What was it, late last week, when we were struggling, trying to figure out whether the warm front was going to go by or not, and it did,
Yeah,
and then it
yeah,
jumped up into the 70s.
right.
I think this time around, it gets through, but I don't know. There might be maybe more clouds to deal with, at least from New York City north. I think south and west of New York City, it may get fairly warm on Sunday, but it might be a tougher sell in New England and up by you.
Well, I think Sunday. I've had clouds throughout the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly cheaply in the morning on Sunday, maybe petering out during Sunday afternoon. But I'm making the assumption also that we're going to have a chilly wind from the east or from the ocean. I didn't go much higher on Sunday, Joe, than 50 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh, in a few.
I could see it. I could see it getting to 65 to 70 in Maryland and Northeast Virginia, but then it
Yeah,
just drops off, pretty rapidly as you go, you go north of there. I want to take a look at the upper air here. I'm going to bring
and
it
by the
up.
way, Joe, on my end, I don't know why this is. I don't have the chat board. I'm watching this on YouTube. I don't have a chat board. What I do have is a whole slew of suggested videos that I could watch.
Really? Are
So
you do you have it? You talking about on your phone or on the screen?
on the
No
screen. Maybe
kidding.
what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to log out.
Well, let me
I'll get out
see.
of that.
I was able to bring the chat up on the screen. There were some weird things going on YouTube. Just to let you know, when I was trying to set up the live stream tonight, I actually had to do an end around because it kept telling me that it was down. And then I was finally able to set it up. So there's all sorts of weird nonsense going on. Let me see. I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna check on my side. So I'm bringing up.
Hey, did you
I
know
see
that
three
behind America's
comments, but
opioid
that's not the
epidemic?
chat board.
If you look, do you? Yeah, I have the chat board on mine, and then there's a button on the lower right that says hide chat.
Hmm.
So if I hide it, then I get the list of. Okay, so Joe, look at the. So I have the list of videos on the side. If you
Right.
look at the very top of that list, okay, there should be a show chat button.
A show chat button.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's on the upper right, but right at the top of the page, above the list of videos.
Okay.
There should be a show chat button.
I don't see that. I see autoplay, and and then I have the icons for create a video post, YouTube apps,
So hold
notification.
on. Are you on? Are you on? Here, let me give you. Let me send you the link. Hang on one second. All right, folks. So we're doing a.
Well, as long as you could see the chat, as long as you
I
could
can
see it.
see the chat. Hold on a second. But let me send you the link so that if you're on the right, sometimes the links are a little different. But give me one second here. Everybody, just bear with us, folks. I'm trying to rescue Mr. Rao here. So
By the
here.
way, this is not the only. Yeah, I've been watching. I don't know if you're aware, but Steve Hartman, who has his weekly on the road segment for the CBS Evening News, he's been doing kind of a video chat with kids at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes.
Except on more than one occasion each day this week, that chat has like broken down,
Oh,
and
really?
he's had to restart it. Um, okay, I see the link that you.
I'm sending you two links. Try the first one, and if you can't see that, go to that
Oh,
chat
there
button.
it is. There it is. I've got it.
You
I've
got it?
now.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem. Okay, so just taking a look at the upper air here, folks. You can plainly see that we have uh, the beginnings of a nice strong upper high, and of course, all the snow lovers are just reveling over the fact that this is showing up now. But that is, this upper high is creating the the uh, the negative North Atlantic oscillation. You still have a ridge there. You have a big upper high in the eastern Gulf of Mexico that's trying to ridge up here. This is on Saturday, by the way, and you see how the trough in the west is just doesn't want to go away. So while you do have the beginnings of that upper high and the negative NAO, you still have this negative Pacific North America index out in the west. And in fact, even going into the end of next week, you've got a fairly deep trough here in the western part of the United States. And then you also have a trough that is off the East Coast. And going beyond that, now this is at day 8 and 9. Hold on a second. Just want to clean that up. As we move it along, now I'm not, some of these frames are missing. At least on this particular run, we seem to be going back to a fast flow. There is higher pressures up near Scandinavia that's kind of pushing back against this. This actually at least gets rid of the trough out in the west. You start to see a ridge pop up there. But, really all we're seeing here, in my view, is kind of an early, just a typical early spring pattern that seems to want to get in the way, get underway, and it is uh, definitely showing where you're uh, gradually destroying that polar vortex up. If you look at the 12Z, the 18Z, the 12Z is a bit different. The 12Z actually does show a fair amount of blockiness up in the northern latitudes in the North Atlantic, holding on. You can see it right in here. This is all higher than normal pressure, and then you've got this low that's over east of Newfoundland, almost a 50-50-ish type low, and a trough that's along the east coast. I mean, this kind of makes more sense with what some of the longer range patterns, what the longer range has been showing. The 18Z looked like it might have gotten a little squirrely toward the end of the period because I think you're gonna want to see higher than normal pressures here. The atmosphere seems to want to go in that direction. So I'm not gonna go off of the off hour one run and suddenly decide that it's not going to happen. So until further notice, it is going to get blocky. It does continue to mean, as I said, and I think Joe will agree with me, as what I said earlier on, which was the fact that you're going to wind up with these weather systems coming through every 24 to 36 hours or so, and just take advantage of the weather when the weather is nice.
Yeah, it would be nice if when it finally everything gets all stuffed up or blocked up and slows everything down to a crawl over a 3 or 4 day interval. It would be nice if we were in that sector where we actually had high pressure predominating and we had nice weather for several days, as opposed to the possibility of a long-term stretch of bleh, which we have seen on more than one occasion in past years. So we'll see that. It's almost like you're spinning the big wheel on The Price is Right, and you're hoping that it lands on the 5, 15, or $1, not
Right.
land anywhere else.
Next week, by the way, maybe around April 2nd or so. I mean, it does look like, the middle or latter part of next week, some kind of a low that's going to try to move across straight east or off the mid-Atlantic coast. The European has a fairly well-defined low into the lower Ohio Valley that it looks like it redevelops offshore. So maybe it winds up bringing a couple of days where we're dealing with onshore flow and rain. I think that would be maybe Wednesday and Thursday of next week. We'll see. Got a long way to go as far as watching that play out. And the other thing I just want to point out here is with respect to severe weather, the Storm Prediction Center uh, isn't showing anything for today. It is showing a marginal risk of severe weather for tomorrow in a small area in East Kansas into central Missouri. And then on day 3, which is Friday, and this was off the day 4 to 8, so now it's come into their time frame. We're seeing a slight risk in parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, and a larger area of marginal risk in the middle Mississippi Valley. It still has on day 4, and as we know, when it's in the data 4 to 8 time frame, you want to pay attention. Mississippi, northern half of Mississippi into western Tennessee, easternmost Arkansas, and I would look for that area to possibly expand a bit as well. So that kind of carries it, you know, it kind of takes us all through all the weather that's going on, because there is just really isn't a whole lot happening.
Yeah, and so day three that would be Friday, right?
That would be day 3 is Friday, and day 4 is Saturday now.
Right, right.
So I'm just going to bring up the chat board. I saw someone ask. Um, uh, Someone ask about the upcoming hurricane season. We've touched on it a couple of times
Yeah,
with the
somebody
fact.
somebody mentioned about the warmth of the Gulf of Mexico and how that might play into. Yeah, Chuck Cardillo. Did anyone see how warm the waters are in the Gulf of Mexico? And that's an exclamation mark. Yeah. Okay. So I guess Chuck is cued in that the temperatures of the Gulf of Mexico are abnormally warm
Mhm.
for this time of the year. Could be a big factor during the hurricane season? Question mark. I don't know. How warm are they now?
Even off of the Florida, when I was down in Florida near Fort Pierce, um, uh, and I've been down in Florida before in the month of March, and in a cold winter along the East Coast, you could certainly have water temperatures in the mid and upper 60s uh, in the middle part of March. But the water temperature actually felt to me like it does up here in late August when it's up in the mid 70s. So on
Yeah.
the Atlantic side, it's warm, and I think that on the Gulf side, I could I'll pull up a map and take a look. But they are definitely running above normal. Ruthless Goat said, "Those who are about to die salute you." Said, "No one ever read the coronavirus." That may be very true, but Betty Davis said it in All About Eve. Okay, so just so you know, happy birthday, welcome home, and we who are about to die salute you. That's the full line. Um,
The biggest Betty Davis fan I know, and you are it.
well, she was a great actress.
Right.
You know, she after seeing it took me a little while, but as I watched her movies, and particularly movies like The Little Foxes, she's hot. She's so she's so good in The Little Foxes. It's beyond description. Um, and in All About Eve, yeah, I mean that's a performance that it's among the best acting performances ever, in my view.
Who was
And
the actress that she put down? I'm trying to remember the name. It was the same actress who was in Network and
Oh,
Faye
$1 million,
Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway.
That's the most difficult person. If anybody ever wants to see, it's a hilarious interview with Johnny Carson that she did. So just Google Betty Davis, Johnny Carson. It's hysterical. Um, uh, she, she, you know, right up, I believe she was late in her late 70s at that point in her life, and she didn't miss a step. I mean, she just nailed it. Frank Riccio says, hot, dry summers translates to tropical activity in New Jersey. Floyd in 99, Sandy in 2012, followed hot, dry summers. It could be. I mean, at the end of the day, it has to be a trough along the East Coast that creates the opportunity for a system to move northward and reach up into the Mid Atlantic states and eventually into New England. So whether that those troughs are preceded by a pattern that favors hot and dry, I couldn't really speak to that. I'd have to do a bit more. A bit more digging on that particular issue.
Well, don't forget also if you want to lump in Bell in 1976, Gloria in 1985, Tropical Storm Doria in 1971. They all marched on a south to north path. Doria right up along the Jersey coast into New York City, and Bell and Gloria taking a south to north path through central Long Island.
Yeah, and in each one of those, I bet you would find, in every single one of those, there was a deep trough or some kind of troughing along the East Coast. I'm just pulling up. Um, Let me see. Pulling up a map, trying to get a map here of the water temperatures in the Gulf. Why do they have to make this so difficult? I'm pulling up a couple of buoys here. 75 in a buoy, that's in the Northeast Gulf. You look along the shore, like near Tampa, for example, 79 and a half.
Wow.
79.9 at a station a bit further south of Tampa. Near Naples, it's 81. On the east coast of Florida, not
No
too
wonder all,
far from Miami, 78.1.
no wonder all the kids are staying down at the beach in spite of all of the warnings and whatever. They just can't resist that warm water, probably.
Off the coast of Corpus Christi, 74.3. I mean, I know these are higher than normal numbers.
Yeah.
Bowie way out in the central Gulf is at 77.1. So, it probably means that, barring, any kind of disruption, we'll probably see water temperatures reaching up warm enough to sustain to sustain tropical systems or force tropical storm development, maybe by the middle or latter part of May.
Right.
It's not that far off from where those numbers are right now.
Now, it's the last thing we need is to have an early start to the tropical storm and hurricane season.
Yeah,
That,
no, it can wait.
yes.
We need a little time. All right, you
Yeah.
know what, Joe? It's coming up on 7:30. If you average out the hour and 35 minutes we did yesterday and the 30 minutes that we've done tonight, that works out to 2 days where we did an hour show, and that's still too long. All right, so everybody have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. No, I have no special guests. Oh, real quick, by the way, Joe, I wanted to ask you. I did notice a couple of posts. Some astronomy stuff going on with planets, and
Yeah.
why don't you give that a mention?
In fact, I was going to mention this. I'm actually going to be online. The local Long Island Astronomy Club has now gone to WebEx for their meetings, and I'm going to be joining them in about a half an hour. But if any of you happen to be up tomorrow morning, let's say around 5 or 5:30 a.m., and look toward the southeast, you might see, believe it or not, what the wise men. This is only a theory now. What the wise men presumably saw and interpreted as the Star of Bethlehem, a star or a sign in the sky. The planets Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are going to form a triangle, a wide isosceles triangle in the sky tomorrow morning. And the interesting thing is that for many, many years at the Hayden Planetarium in New York, they used to have a Christmas show where they used to demonstrate how the planets would line up. In one of the very first years that the planetarium was up, this is 1937. This is what they used to show on their dome. Now, back then, they did not have the ability of showing the planets as just dots of light or stars as we see them. They actually had the planets looking the way the planets supposedly look um, through a telescope. But there you could see the skyline of New York, the RCA building, the Empire State Building, and the three planets forming this conjunction, if you will. And tomorrow morning, if you look into the east-southeast sky, again around 5 or 5:30 a.m., you will once again see these three planets forming a much wider type of triangle, not like the one you see here. And this is the speculation. Did the wise men interpret this unusual celestial summit meeting as perhaps a sign that perhaps a savior was coming? Perhaps this was the savior for all mankind that the prophets had said was coming, and that they were looking to the sky for something unusual.
We are
And
being
this triangle was certainly very unusual to them. And biblical scholars and astronomers say, well, maybe this might have been the star that is mentioned in Saint Matthew in the Bible. It's very contentious. There are others who say, no, 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 it was a comet or maybe a supernova. And there are, of course, others who say, no, it was absolutely nothing natural, that it was a supernatural event, that the storm moved across the sky and held forth right over one single house or uh, barnyard, if you will, or the. Of course, we know that according to the biblical story that Mary and Joseph and Christ were in a stable. So there's a lot of contentiousness about exactly what that object was. But one of the possible theories will be visible to us tomorrow morning. So if you're up early tomorrow morning, have nothing to do with 5 or 5:30, don't decide to watch the Inside the Eyelid show, as many of us do at that hour. Step outside. It should be clear, or at least it's clearing skies after midnight, and you might have a chance to see this in tomorrow morning's pre-sunrise sky.
I never thought that the wise men were very wise. I mean, for one thing, you don't show up at somebody's house without calling ahead of time. Okay?
You know what, Joe? And a lot of people don't realize this unless you've read the Bible thoroughly or whatever. But the Bible doesn't tell you how many wise men there were. The only reason why we say three wise men is because they brought three gifts: gold,
Oh,
frankincense,
please.
and myrrh, and that's the assumption that okay, there were three of them, but there could have been 5 or 10 or one or two.
Well,
The Bible
three.
does not tell you how many wise. Even though I've heard that they've even had names: Gaspar and Melchior and Baldastar. But again, this is not from the Bible. The Bible never mentions how many wise men there were.
As
Really.
far as those gifts were concerned, for one thing, one of them brought gold. Now, if there's anything more crass and more tacky, is to show up at a baby shower with a gift certificate. Okay? And the other two, what do? They bring frankincense and myrrh. And that begs to the old adage that when a man doesn't know what to get for a gift, he buys perfume. And
Oh,
I'm going to just leave it at that. For
yeah.
God's sakes, poor Mary, you just show up. You think you could give her a little lead time so she could at least, sweep the stable a little bit? You got a cow, you got
Oh,
a donkey and a cow in there. It's liable to be just a little bit messy. And you know what? Maybe a bottle of Febreze would have not been a bad idea.
you're pushing this, Joe. St. Peter is going to remember this when it's time for you to go up.
No, look, let me tell you about St. Peter. Okay, he's got eyesight issues. Okay, what you don't know is that he's also a little absent-minded. So he has the keys to heaven, but he's always losing them. So God, there's a vase. Okay, next to the gate that has the giant lions on it. You want to go to the one to the left. They keep an extra set of keys in there, so that if the gates are locked, you can let yourself in. Just get somebody to distract Peter for a while. Get Peter to talk about fishing. That'll keep him occupied.
I had the perfect cartoon for New Yorker magazine, but unfortunately, I can't really do it now. But it would have been in vogue like 20 or some odd years ago. It was a picture of the stable, and there's Joseph and Mary, and even the Christ child, and they're all looking with a strange look at the three wise men. One of the wise men has gold, one of the wise men has frankincense, and the third wise man has a bag, and in the bag is a part of a solar panel and a module from a spaceship or whatever. And what do you think that was?
Go. I have no idea.
Mirror,
Oh.
gold, frankincense,
You just
and mirror.
instead of myrrh, stop at the bakery and pick up a box of pastries for God's sake. Seriously, you're going to somebody's house. You got to
Yeah,
bring something.
chocolate babka.
You know what it is, folks. Don't take offense. Uh, I, 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 I spent too much time watching Monty Python, and the odd. And we're going to wrap this up because you got to go. But I actually have read most of the books in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. I actually read through most of the books of the Old Testament, and the thing is, as I'm reading him, I'm realizing, saying, "Oh my God, this is where Monty Python got this, and this is where there's a whole." I think it was. I'm trying to remember now. In Joshua, there's this whole section that there's this big war going on. Okay, and they describe this scene where it's nighttime and God has placed himself in this giant white cloud, and God spends the entire night just literally pointing and incinerating groups of people all all around this entire area. And it says in there point blank that he wiped out about 250,000 people during the overnight. But it's in such a very, it was written, it's written in a very matter of fact way,
Right.
and you're getting all this collateral damage going on. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, this is Monty Python. They looked at this and they just said, they just got the satire from it, So it's all very interesting stuff.
And
Anyway,
the most religious and funniest of the Monty Python shows on the television show was the Bishop.
the big, yes. Oh, there were, yeah, so many great
One
skits.
last thing I must say. For
Okay.
anybody who went on my Joe Rao weather YouTube page today at 2:30, expecting to see me do a webinar with the kids about snow, reading from my kids book, the cool story behind snow, and saw nothing. The reason why you saw
Well,
nothing
we didn't
is
see anything all winter, but go on.
that's that perfect example.
Perfect.
But the reason why you didn't see anything is because um, we videoed the show. We actually put music on it. We tried to make it very nice. But then when we tried to upload it, it was taking a tremendously long time to upload. I think it was something like 50 gigabytes of space or something. My daughter, who was the one who was uploading, said this isn't going to work. We're not going to get there by your 2:30 deadline. But she ended up getting a compressor and compressing everything down, and
Right.
now it's uploading much faster. So we've rescheduled this for tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So if you want to go on the Joe Rao Weather Channel tomorrow at 10, you will see moi reading out of this kid's book. Get your kids together, gather around your monitor or gather around your smart TV. What else do you have to do now that we're all quarantined and stuck inside? But to listen to yours truly read this book. And if you're interested, please subscribe to Joe Rao Weather on YouTube because we're pushing toward 1,000 for a subscriber number. We've got about 660 now, Joe. So we're hoping that this will help us push us closer to the 1,000 mark in the days to come.
Okay, so really, let me just bring up. You just reminded me. The chairman, Scott Burler's not here tonight. His cat passed away, so he's taking the night off, and we send our best. It's always tough, losing a pet at any time,
Yes.
particularly right now. It just, with all the other stress that's going on top of around us. Night and day with the coronavirus. So our best regards to you, Scott. And so Timothy Veltman subs in with Briller Jeopardy. So we have Veltman Jeopardy tonight. Now his questions are a little tougher, so I'm going to go really quick. Okay. So
Right.
the number of daily snowfall records. Okay. So the question is this. So the New York City, 4.8 inches of snow for the whole winter. How
Right.
many daily record snowfalls exceed that 4.8
Oh,
inches?
come on, Timothy.
Yes.
This goes to show you what it's all boiled down to with this isolation and social distancing and coronavirus. You've got people who have nothing really to
Oh,
do.
be nice to Timothy. This is a tough
I
question.
know. You're asking me how many times we have gone over 4.8 inches
In the
in a
daily
single snowfall
record snowfalls for individual days, how many times have we gone over 4.8 inches for those of
at Central Park
in New York City Central Park?
over 150 years.
Over 150 years. If you
I
think about this, Joe, if you think about this, so December, January, February, and March, okay, that's 30, 90, I'm sorry, 60, 88 days, and then let's add the 30 days of March, so that's 118 days, okay, 118 individual records. How many of those records are over 4.8 inches? If you think about it, it's probably not as hard as you think.
uh, I'll say I'll say 30.
103.
103.
Yeah,
Yeah.
103. Almost took him 103 days to count all those days, I bet.
Yeah.
Timothy, I mean that in the most loving way. Okay, I really do. So that's the question for tonight. So we got all that in, and everybody, thanks for being here.
And we
Uh,
should do something special on Friday, Joe, because you know what Friday is.
Friday is the
It's our day
27th.
on Friday.
It's
It's our day.
our.
Friday is National Joe
Oh,
Day
it is National Joe Day.
on
Oh
Friday.
my God, we should be front and center on every network.
Right. I mean,
Um,
what better program to watch on National Joe
then
Day?
the Joe and Joe
Joe and
Weather
Joe Show.
Show.
Yeah.
That's right. I got to remember that. I have to finagle something here with regards to that. Let me see if I can figure something out. Have
It's
a
too bad we're not together on Friday, Joe, because my wife will bake a cake for us.
and I, you know what? The woman can bake.
Oh, I know she can
The
bake.
woman can bake. She's good.
She cooks like an angel cooks. She bakes like an angel bakes.
All right.
Or like on the Honeymooner, that episode, Atomic Passion, Angel Cake.
Angel cake. Yeah. I'm wearing his pin.
Yeah. Good night,
Good
folks.
night.